Today, the Washington Post is hosting its third annual Global Women's Summit. The event will feature powerful women panelists and speakers from across the political spectrum, including RNC co-chair Laura Trump, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and our next guest, Democratic Governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Governor, thanks so much for being with us. I want to understand better New Mexico and where it's moved, because we always talk about the states that were reliably Democratic that went Republican. But if you look at the map now, you've got New Mexico and Colorado, which is basically two blue states in a sea of red from Nevada all the way over to the East Coast. And I just did a quick check here. Republicans won, and of course, Pete Domenici, a Senate legend from New Mexico. And New Mexico always elected Republicans. Republican presidential candidates won 68, 72, 76, 80, 84, 88. George W. Bush even won in 2004. So why is New Mexico now blue when it's moved blue when so much of the country has moved red?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. One, New Mexico is a state that is clearly not interested in extreme positions. And the Republican Party today isn't moderate, isn't focused on the middle, isn't focused on working class Americans, even if folks voted assuming that they would support that agenda. New Mexicans know in this day and age that's not the case. Democrats in New Mexico, including me, are delivering in that regard. So free child care, investments in affordable housing, free college, so much investments in raising wages and opportunities that now New Mexico, because of those investments, went from 50th in child poverty to 17th. So really clearly demonstrating we know how to make a difference in family stability and opportunity. And that's what people want at the end of the day. They don't want extreme positions. They want us to make sure that we're focused there, and they want to make sure that we're not taking away fundamental rights and freedoms. And the state squarely is in the column about making sure that women's rights and reproductive freedoms stay intact.
Governor Psaki, you've said that you're not going to help with Donald Trump's aspirations to do mass deportations. I think there are a lot of people out there who are happy to hear that. What can you specifically do to stop his efforts moving forward as once he becomes president?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as you know, it's unlawful. You can't use the military. You can't do mass deportation. So any federal administration, you should expect states, and I think you should expect some bipartisan support, not just by the Democratic governors, is that violating the Constitution and the law, we're not going to do that. We ought to be working on making sure that violent criminals and criminal activity is stopped everywhere. There isn't a state that isn't interested, whether you're an American citizen or not. And he effectively, Trump, killed the bipartisan border deal. Not the first time that he's done that. We need more agents. We need more collective effort so that we're bringing border security and holding people accountable where they are. Disrupting family status and the economy, inhumane, cruel, unfair, discriminate policies that, again, are illegal on their face. We are not going to cooperate in any way in that effort.
So, Governor, let's get your response to something else that the president-elect has proposed, which is eliminating the Department of Education. If that were to happen, what sort of impact would it have on your state and its students?
Devastating. It's devastating impacts. New Mexico has a much higher per capita average of kiddos who need special education interventions and supports. This notion that we aren't going to fund that we're going to go just to vouchers, that we aren't going to make sure that there's really equality inside a school system. Look, my sister in the 60s was one of the very first special education students in the state of New Mexico, and I would argue probably really anywhere in the country. And we've come a long way, but we need to do much better. And a lot of that is related to not having enough maternal and prenatal care, not early interventions. We are shifting that dynamic, as I talked about earlier. Not having billions of dollars and an accountability metrics is devastating. And that's just on the special education side. We're a majority state. Not doing investments for Hispanic students and Native American students is tragic. And we are finally moving the needle by reintroducing the science of reading. And we're seeing dramatic increases in our literacy scores. They want to abandon all of it. It will have devastating both financial and school access components, including transportation for New Mexico kids. And again, we will fight it. We will also put our own investments. If that occurs, we aren't going to let kiddos fall further behind anywhere. And we will do that as a collective in the Southwest.
Governor Elise Jordan here. Your voters on the border shifted 8 points to the right. And in Texas, the same thing happened with voters who live on the border moving to the right. You say that you are not going to participate in Donald Trump's deportation policies, but how can you strengthen the border in New Mexico? What's the compromise?
Well, I mean, it is this border bill. I'm really clear that this is a federal issue. I want, and you're right, New Mexicans want, whether they live at the southern border or they live in the northern side of the state, or the northern part of the state. I need more border patrol agents. We want more interdictions on the drug trafficking and human trafficking and bringing guns across. We want all of that. I need technology and fentanyl screening. I want cameras. We want all the smart devices and efforts. I need real personnel at the border. And this notion that we are politicizing, not putting resources where we are decades behind, including you need more people at the ports of entry where these issues occur without interfering with economic efforts, because Mexico is now our largest U.S. trading partner. You want food prices to be lowered? You better figure out what you're doing at the border, where we're bringing in fresh produce and taking it over all of the time. We need this border bill passed, and we need folks hired at the border, and I will do everything I can. And I don't know a Democratic governor who doesn't want Congress to act here.
So, Governor, two really quick questions to end. First of all, I love talking to governors because governors actually have to work with the other side. Governors have to be bipartisan, and you see that in just about every state. I want to ask you, first of all, what do you see as some opportunities for bipartisanship, not just in your state over the next 2 years, but also in Washington, first of all? And secondly, there are a lot of Democrats that are waking up, obviously, last week and through this week, that are down and dejected, and some saying, I'm exhausted, I'm done with the resistance, I'm done with marching, I'm done with politics. What is your message of hope to them?
Well, look, no candidate got 50%. And so I think that speaks to your point where people are exhausted and anxious and angry. Those are not good strategies to improve anyone's quality of life. So I want to start with the hopeful message. Look, there's lots that we can do. And quite frankly, you know, governors and your local elected leaders have a huge role to play in reinvesting in your family's security, stability, and quality of life. And there's lots of opportunities, bipartisan, to work with Congress. When I served in Congress, I was in the minority, but we did a ton of work that provided real relief and innovation support to New Mexico families. I work really well with our legislature, both sides of the aisle. That is not to say that we don't have, you know, some major disagreements. And I think it's well known that I'm really working on a public safety agenda, and I've got a ton of support, largely by more conservative members of the legislature. But I think we're going to have some real wins in this 60-day session. Those investments inside police departments from Congress is another really good place where people can see us making practical, pragmatic efforts. I want to support Congress. I'd love to see them do more on the child tax credit. New Mexico kept it. There are other really important ways for us to do that. But New Mexicans also expect me to fight any efforts on reducing educational support, on repealing the Affordable Care Act. And I will tell you that Republicans in New Mexico, by and large, recognize the value of our Medicaid investments, of the Affordable Care Act, about making sure pre-existing conditions are covered. And these are areas that make a difference in people's lives, and they appreciate those pragmatic responses by both sides of the aisle. And I think Americans want more of that, while holding this incoming administration accountable, every administration accountable to the letter of the law. Yep.
Democratic Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham of New Mexico covering a lot of ground for us this morning. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you for having me.